Hey, welcome to our Dead Talk, the place where we discuss all shows and comics within the Walking Dead universe. I'm Colleen.
And I'm Jeremy. Today's podcast, we're going to be discussing The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, Season 1, Episode Number 1, titled Lama Perdue. The title of this episode translates in English to The Lost Soul. It aired September 10th, 2023.
Here's the plot for today's episode. Daryl Dixon's arrival to France sets off a violent chain of events that inadvertently puts a young boy at the heart of a growing religious movement in danger.
Before we start, we want to give a big spoiler warning. We'll be talking about the entire episode during this podcast, so obviously there's going to be spoilers for you if you haven't watched it yet. You've been warned. Welcome back, everybody. Long time no see.
Or here, I guess, right?
Yeah, I guess that works.
Woohoo!
Yeah, so it's been a little while since we've made a podcast.
Just a skosh.
Finally, some new
Episodes
are coming out for the Walking Dead universe.
I mean, Dead City did come out in June, so it is currently September, so we're a little behind on keeping up with the current releases, but we're doing this one about Daryl, obviously, as you heard in the intro portion.
We felt motivated to get back into the saddle of everything.
Yeah. We've wanted to for even Dead City, but we've just been finding it difficult to find the time to really dedicate to it. So we found that we're finally able to kind of do it now a little bit. We're hoping to release one podcast for every new episode of Daryl. So hopefully it'll be weekly, but we don't know yet for sure. So sorry if you are really digging our podcast and you want us to be consistent. We're trying, but we'll get there, we promise.
Yeah, we're going to try our darndest to make it more consistent.
Yeah, because we definitely enjoy it and we are passionate about it. It's just a matter of juggling it with everything else.
Yeah.
But we're not going to make excuses. We're going to really try our best to do it. And you guys can definitely reach out to us on Instagram, and our emails are listed on our YouTube channel, and we have a YouTube channel. We're still trying to get figured out with how Anchor transitioned to Spotify, so there's different things with that, but there's more interaction features that I'm excited to be tinkering with, so we'll do that.
Yeah, I like that a lot too.
Yeah, because we would definitely love to hear from you guys too that listen, because there was someone that commented on our post, our last episode for the finale of The Walking Dead. So that was exciting. That was really cool. So feel free to reach out.
It feels like we're not just talking to the void.
Yes.
So definitely reach out, contact us, let us know what we're doing wrong, what we're doing right.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys say. I think we're going to jump into this episode.
Yeah, we're going to jump into Daryl.
We're also trying something different.
We're not going to jump into Daryl. We're going to jump into the Daryl Dixon episode.
Wouldn't want to jump into Daryl, though?
Bruh. There are
at least his arms, right?
Well, there are a couple things. Cause, we're recording for episode 1 right now, but we did watch episode 2 last night as it was released, and there were definitely some parts where I made some jokes that were like, oh, you know, the fangirls and boys that love Daryl are definitely like swooning over him with certain things. But I mean, how can you not? It's Daryl Dixon. Come on. He has his own show. And they even, spoiler alert, they even signed for season 2. And season 1 wasn't even released yet.
Which I think is a little bit of a giveaway. I mean...
Yeah, it always kind of is.
Yeah.
But episode 2 was scary. I was like getting really nervous watching that one.
You jumped a couple of times.
Yeah. But we'll talk about that one in the next podcast.
Yes. Yeah, we're going to talk about the first one. We're going to try something a little bit different this time. We're actually going to watch the episode again in between our takes. So everything is nice and fresh in our mind.
Yeah.
And we're going to be able to tell you right as it happens.
Yes. So the opening scene was pretty cool. It's a little different than I think we've really seen in other Walking Dead shows, where they shot from like underneath the water, which was really cool.
Right.
And you could see that there's a capsized small boat floating above.
I can't believe Daryl has lasted this long and not known how to use a boat.
I know. He knows how to use a motorcycle.
If you haven't seen the episode yet, which, I mean, you should be listening to this anyway, but if you haven't seen the episode yet, he's floating on a boat that's upside down.
Yes. And it almost looks like I don't know if he tied himself to the boat or if there just happens to be rope over his body in a way, because maybe he's just on there and then the rope just kind of floated over him. But it almost looks like he tied himself or someone tied him to that.
Yeah. Obviously, I think something happened.
Yes.
You know, traumatic that he had to get away from really quick. Obviously, I know he does. He knows how to use a boat. I'm sure he knows how to use a boat. It's just funny seeing him right on top of a boat.
I know.
Like he doesn't know any better. He don't know no better.
Right. But was kind of convenient that he seemed to, like, regain consciousness when he was basically close to shore. Can you imagine if he regained consciousness and flopped off the boat when he was in the middle of the water? But it seemed like he was almost on shore. And then the one thing that Jeremy and I were both like, oh, God, I understand he is probably so beyond dehydrated he wants some sort of drink. But everybody knows that even if you're on a body of water that's the ocean, you don't drink the ocean water because it's going to dehydrate you more and all that. And he washes on shore. He's kind of disoriented, looking around, and then he sees, like, what looks like a sand bucket that a kid would play with. Yeah. And he just grabs it and chugs it. And I'm like, oh, God, that's probably filled with salt water.
I don't know if you know, there's high tide and then there's low tide. And high tide, clearly, I mean, that bucket washed up. Could have been from high tide. Could be filled with nothing but salt water.
Yeah.
He doesn't sniff. I don't know. I'm a sniffer. I sniff everything before I eat it. So I would definitely be sniffing that water. Or at least tasting the water first.
I might cut that part out. I don't like how that sounds.
I sniff everything. Everything.
It's true.
But, no, I would have at least tasted the water first. It's just one of those, I don't want to say inconsistencies, but it's something that...
You would have tasted the water first or smelled the water first, you mean?
I would have at least tasted the water.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, you can't really smell salt water necessarily.
Yeah,
so.
it'd be hard to smell it. But, especially being on the ocean for so long, that would smell like nothing at that point.
And then he...
Could be seagull poop in there.
There could be crabs in there, too. Because we've seen some chilling in the sand buckets. So after that, he walks up a little bit more, and he's, like, on the city street or some sort of street. And, oh, God, if any of you have been in water, especially the sand, like, well, especially in the ocean, and then you're all wet, and then you get sand on you, like he had, that is one of the most uncomfortable feelings in the world, in my opinion. Like, when he has on his jeans and, like, his shirt and everything, and then it's all wet, and there's sand, and he's walking.
Yeah.
Ew. No, thank you.
Yeah, he's wearing. It's not like he's wearing shorts.
Yeah.
They can just like wash everything. I don't know. I would have taken like everything off at the beach, rinsed it off, let it all dry out, and then go looking for some food.
We're looking at it like we're on vacation or whatever. He's running away from this huge danger.
True, but I don't know. I'm watching this and I'm thinking like, well, what would I do? And I would strip down at the like nobody's there. Strip down, wash my clothes, and like try to let it dry while I look for other food or something. I don't know.
It was interesting when he saw the sign as he was walking down the road that it had the signs to direct to what part of the city you're going into, and it was obviously in French, and he definitely was like, oh boy, where am I?
Never learned French. Shortly afterwards, he comes to a city, mostly underwater. Well, a good portion of it's underwater. It's kind of a nice change of pace. It's better than the wood. I was getting tired of the woods from the Walking Dead universe. You know,
we did have Oceanside.
Yeah, but they didn't spend much time there.
No.
But Daryl walks up and he finds a boat, and he's looking for some sustenance. He's looking for a water or something like that. And did you want to say anything about the water?
Again, he doesn't smell or just slightly taste it.
Yep.
He just pounds it back.
Yep.
What if that was somebody's pee bottle?
Could have been a pee bottle. Could have been an old pee bottle.
Which may have been drinkable at that point, I guess.
Yeah, I guess anything's drinkable at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, he just up and chugs anything in his way.
He is smarter than that.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Again, we're nitpicking, and it's just funny to us because he is such a survivalist, and he's lasted so long. What's going to take him out? It's going to be Mr. Clean in a little bottle.
Oh, jeez.
Can you imagine?
Think of that.
What if somebody found a cleaning product?
Who put Drano in here?
Oh, my God.
That's what got my voice so growly in the first place. God.
But, okay, so he goes back, he finds his boat, and he's looking around, and then he ends up finding a little tape recorder. That was pretty cool.
It's amazing that they can still find working batteries.
I know, right?
But I think, I don't know, what's the life expectancy on a battery?
I don't know.
I am going to nitpick the crap out of every little thing. I'm sorry.
So welcome to our Dead Talk, where we nitpick everything.
No. We love the Walking Dead universe.
Yes. Okay, so the one thing, I don't know, do you want to talk about the possible Easter egg that we both kind of felt like?
I think you pointed it out, but I totally agree. Call mentioned that the voice recorder, especially with the Irish accent, felt very similar to BioShock.
Yes.
Especially the first one with Atlas.
Yeah, if any of you play BioShock video games, even just the sound that obviously it was a tape recorder, so they have to add that tape recorder sound to the audio kind of thing. But that's exactly how it was in BioShock, and it almost felt like we were in BioShock.
I was trying to hear what the wife's name was. I was hoping that he was going to say Moira.
Oh, that would have been
because that was a name
really
in
cool.
BioShock.
Yeah. No, I think he said Syl.
I think it was.
So maybe like short for Sylvia, maybe.
Yeah. So it's probably not a nod to it, but
maybe.
I don't know. It felt like it.
And it sounds kind of sad because the person recording, it sounds like he lost his wife just shy of their 10-year anniversary, and it sounds like they have a daughter together, and the daughter just kind of wants things to go back to their normal, and that she just wants to go back home. And then it was cool because they had a bit of Daryl looking at his reflection in the window, so it's kind of like, Daryl too wants to go home, but there is like a literal ocean between him now.
That was a nice catch.
Yeah, it was pretty subtle. It was pretty cool.
I liked it. The next scene, we have Daryl checking out the map. We're not sure where he's heading, but he does speak into the tape recorder that he finds on the boat where he was just listening to the Irish guy talking about his family. He mentions that he was looking for something. We assume he's looking for Rick, but something. It might be, that's a little vague. We don't know what he was really looking for.
Yeah,
we don't know where he's headed either.
I think, didn't he kind of at the end of The Walking Dead, he obviously went off on his own. He went off on his own with the motorcycle. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if it was also implied he's going to continue to look for Rick because he knows Michonne is out there still. And he kind of talked to Judith and RJ. RJ we didn't really get to interact with too much. I think he was too young. But Judith we really did. And I think Daryl's kind of mission was to go out and try and find Rick and Michonne still to this day.
Yeah.
And then
he got blown way off course.
Oh, absolutely. And then I don't know if Daryl's recording right now. He said something along the lines of, I want him to know I tried. Now, did she say him as in a single guy or them as in, I want him?
Like them.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if he means Judith and RJ, or is he talking about Rick, if Rick finds somehow this recording.
Yeah. But shortly after that, he's walking on the train tracks, which we all know is a bad idea, from Terminus.
Especially Daryl. I was surprised that Daryl was walking on there because he's the main one that was like, nope, not walking on train tracks. And then we know what happened multiple times on the train tracks with Terminus, and then with even Negan's people, they shot that one girl through her eye with the arrow.
I felt like, that won't happen in France.
Yeah, okay.
But then the scene, they pull back.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful shot.
Did any of you notice it, by the way?
They must have.
I hope. If you're a fan of The Walking Dead, you had to have noticed the similarity in the shot.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yes.
It was very similar to one of the opening shots in the original first episode of The Walking Dead.
Yep.
With Rick riding the horse.
Yep.
Into the city.
Yeah, into Atlanta.
Which
is my watch cover photo. I love that scene so much.
Such a good scene.
So it was really cool to see that in season 1, episode 1 of the Daryl show. And especially because in The Walking Dead, season 1, episode 1, it was all about Rick at that point.
Yep.
Now this is all about Daryl. So that's pretty interesting that they're having it like that.
Yeah, we're gonna see some more juxtapositions, I think.
But I loved that scene, so kudos to the writers and whoever
directed that.
Yeah, whoever directed that to be the idea where Daryl was walking down the center almost exactly like Rick walking into Atlanta. Yeah. But Daryl's walking into France. Holy crap, you guys.
Yeah, that was pretty intense. They showed Daryl walking up to an indoor market.
Yeah, it looks like some sort of flea market type of situation.
Long abandoned, obviously. Doesn't test for, like, usually they walk into a place and like knock on the doors like that. They started doing that in like the second season. I don't know why they don't continue to do that. Yeah. But I guess he just feels like it looks dead enough.
I guess so. Maybe you just get kind of desensitized to it, being in there for so many years. Being in there as in that environment. Yeah.
He's scavenging for supplies, and in the background we see a walker stirring naturally. Daryl doesn't hear it.
How? I don't know.
Until it's too late. And then he's surrounded by a bunch of walkers. Mm-hmm. But these walkers are a little different.
Yeah, they are a little different. It's interesting. They have some sort of acid because he hits one of the walkers. Well, first off, that walker that we did see first with his hand coming up, I think that's one of the ones with acid too.
Yeah.
And if you guys notice, they seem to have some sort of almost outer veins on their like face and their like torso area.
Yeah, they're very veiny looking.
Yeah, so it's interesting because he hit the one walker in the head and the walker fell to the ground and the blood splatter on the cement was acid.
Acid, yeah.
That was interesting. and then the one that grabbed his arm, and then Daryl starts screaming. Can you imagine? He's been in this environment for how many years now, and it's like his first day in France, he's going to get taken out.
They do it different in France.
God. So when he was starting to fight the walkers, of course, he's being awesome and hitting them. But then I was like, that was such a mistake, stabbing that one walker through the table.
It was so cool, though. It was
so
definitely
cool. But you saw how the weapon that he
spear.
had a spear, and it had like a hook in a certain way that pulling it back through the table was going to get stuck.
Yeah.
So I'm like, son of a nutcracker, that sucks. But he made it. He got it. And then he seems a little like...
Spoiler alert.
What?
No, I'm joking.
Oh, I was like, what's a spoiler alert? That he made it?
We gave you guys a spoiler warning already. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's got a pretty massive burn on his forearm.
Yeah.
Really cool. I love it. I'm still a little like in the back of my mind. This is who I am. I'm sorry, guys. I'm thinking, okay, these guys are filled with acid, but they didn't dissolve themselves. Why aren't they dissolving?
Oh, okay. I didn't think about that.
Unless maybe it's not acid. Maybe alkaline substances can burn just as much, if not more. Still, I feel like that would still, I don't know, dissolve the bodies.
I don't know. Well, there's definitely some sort of experimentation going on with these walkers, because
Maybe radiation?
we already had radiation in Fear the Walking Dead.
You're right.
And it wasn't that kind of reaction. They did have burns, but it was a different kind of burn.
Yeah.
I'm glad that Daryl found that translation book, the French to English translation book. But as we all know, it doesn't last long.
Yeah. That was super handy.
It was super handy. It would have been awesome for him to keep on him. It was nice size and everything. And
They don't have Google Translate anymore.
nope.
That would be amazing to have at that point. But they do show somebody's watching Daryl. We don't know who she is at this point. But she doesn't seem violent. Shortly after, Daryl's cleaning his wounds. He's walking off. He's hobbling off and whatnot. And he comes across 2 French survivors. And thankfully, as they all seem to do, they speak English, thankfully.
Yeah, right? Lucky.
Yeah. English is such a widely distributed language.
I guess so, yeah. Thankfully. At least
Yeah.
for Daryl's sake. The only thing, again, I'm speaking as a person that pretty much only speaks English. I do wish they had subtitles pop up for all of the French that's being spoken.
Me too.
Because I don't know what all they're saying. They do put it up later in the episode and in the following episode too, but still.
But I think it kind of adds to the chaos because Daryl doesn't know.
Yeah, it's true.
He's just as lost as we are.
Yep.
So.
And that girl, so as you know, if you watch that scene, they end up robbing.
They barter. They barter. Well, they do barter at first.
They did, yeah.
So they asked for medical supplies, which Daryl had, of course, which I'm sure is probably worth more than gold at this point.
Yeah.
For a couple of apples.
And rabbit too.
And rabbit, yeah. He traded them for apples and rabbit. Sounds really weird.
But hey, anything.
Yeah. And it seemed like they wanted to work with him a little bit more, but I think that they got the idea, well, they got the feeling that Daryl didn't necessarily want to join their group.
Yeah.
Because they did offer to, like, hey, maybe we can help each other. We could help you get to where you're going, and that'll help us. And Daryl didn't say anything, so they kind of took it as, I see.
Yeah, I guess so. You're right. Well, then we didn't really know what happened, or we'll never know what could have happened with that, because then those 2 soldiers came up.
2 soldiers show up in a car, and they're carrying muskets, like old school, like flintlock.
That you need like powder for.
Yeah, muzzle loaders, I should say.
Oh, okay.
I shouldn't. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's a big difference between I know a flintlock literally uses a flint to ignite the flash pan.
Dang.
But I'm gonna call them muzzle loaders.
We don't really know who these 2 guys are at this point, but it doesn't seem like there's a good vibe coming around. So those 2 guys, the 2 soldiers come out, and the 2 French people that we meet, they kind of are on guard instantly, and the 2 soldiers are only speaking French, so she translates to Daryl to say, they want you to sit down. So then he walks over and sits. And then, things start escalating from there, and that's when Daryl sees his opportunity, and he stabs the soldier that's guarding Daryl.
in the neck.
And then the other soldier comes over, which we find out his name is Michael or Michel. It's probably pronounced. Sorry, I'm going to massacre some of these names because it's French and I'm American, so, I apparently don't care. No, I'm going to attempt to, but I know I'm going to...
We're not practiced.
Yeah.
So I think with practice, we would be able to do it, but...
It seems to go south very quickly, and then the Michael, he just shoots Daryl, but then also shoots his friend.
Yeah.
But shoots Daryl, like, in the neck, basically. Yep. And then that's when Daryl's like, hey, give me my medical kit. And then that's when they decide to rob him. But why? That's what I don't understand.
Again, they felt that... I think that they felt that Daryl was really on his own and wasn't going to help them anyway. So they took it on themselves to take what they could from Daryl. And they were going to... Oh, I want to go back real quick because I want to point out the one fact that Daryl was about to shoot Michelle on the ground. Yeah, Daryl was going to shoot Michelle.
Yeah, you're right.
And the woman, and I can't remember her name.
Her name is Maribel.
Maribel.
Sure.
Yeah, Maribel comes over and says, "No, save the powder."
Yes.
And then stabs Michelle in the chest.
Yeah, and she's the one that takes him out. Which, if you fast forward quite a few scenes, we're gonna find out something different.
Mm-hmm. But, so Daryl's bleeding a little bit from the neck. Not a good predicament to be in. Nope. Asking for some help from Michelle. After he saved them, he helped them.
He did, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that there was a scene where Daryl was on the ground and he could have been shot, but Maribel did take out Michelle. At least knocked him to the ground then, because Daryl could have been toast at that point, too. Yeah. So they did kind of, I guess at that point, they were kind of even, but then they had to go and rob him.
The old man wasn't blind the whole time.
Nope.
We thought he was blind, but nope. He walks up with that cane blade thing that he has and knocks Daryl out.
And then we see in the distance.
Yeah, I think Maribel was about to kill him. Wasn't she?
She was about to kill Daryl?
She was standing over him. She was standing over Daryl, and then we see in the distance, because Daryl's just a little bit with it, but he's everything's a little fuzzy. He sees in the distance somebody coming to save him.
Well, Maribel, she stabbed the first soldier in the head, so he wouldn't turn. But then she didn't get the chance to do it to Michael because Isabel came. So I don't know. Was she going to take out Daryl? Was that before the grandfather smacked him over the head?
She might have. I don't know. Daryl passes out after being saved by the mysterious person. Next scene, we see Daryl in and out of consciousness, and he's having flashbacks to the last episode of The Walking Dead, when he's saying goodbye to Judith and saying that it's not like this is the last time we're going to see each other.
And Judith saying that Daryl deserves a happy ending, too.
But shortly afterwards, we see the nuns. Well, yeah, apparently there's nuns.
Yeah, we're at a convent or something like that.
We're at a monastery with French nuns, and they are burning the crap out of Daryl's arm.
Yes.
They're cauterizing the wound from the walker previously that grabbed Daryl on the arm. And we find out that they call them broilers. I'm not sure if saying broilers or boilers. Probably broilers or a burner. Broiler. Yeah. Broiler.
So it's pretty interesting. That's one of my favorite things about The Walking Dead.
How many times can I say broiler?
That's one of my favorite things about The Walking Dead universe. When you're in different regions, they call them different things.
It was pretty neat, yeah.
Or they, not even just different regions, but you're just in different groups. Everybody has a different name for the walkers.
Yeah, there's walkers, biters.
Now, broilers and burners.
The hungry ones, she called them
the hungry ones. There's just the dead. There's been quite a few. We should probably make a list of how many we've heard.
Yeah.
If you feel like making a comment, give us a couple that we're forgetting, because I know there's a ton that we're forgetting. I
definitely know we're forgetting some.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot. I always go with Walker, though. That's like the one that always sticks with me.
Oh, yeah.
Isabel and Daryl have a bit of an exchange going on, and she seems nice so far. Mm-hmm. And you know how we all are with new people. We're very skeptical on how they're going to be. But
she's a nun!
Doesn't mean anything. But she seems very sweet so far.
Yeah.
So I'm liking her so far. And if you're a fan of the Harry Potter movies, you'll know her. And if you don't, then you'll know now. She was Fleur Delacour from Harry Potter.
Yes, in the Goblet of Fire.
Mm-hmm. She starred in the Goblet of Fire. Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, they have a little bit of a back and forth, and we find out that... What did we find out?
Well, we find out that she has been with these nuns, and nun population has been dwindling over the past 12 years. And she asks Daryl, how did he get to France? And he said a bunch of bad decisions. So at this point, we don't know yet. But I mean, we've watched the whole episode, so we do know where he comes from.
I'm looking forward to seeing... We have to find out some of those bad decisions that led to this.
We absolutely have to.
Because there's a whole season that we missed in between The Walking Dead and this.
Oh, snap. You know what that could mean, though? Even though we just said earlier in our podcast that... So we already know that the last episode, which is going to be 6 episodes in this season of Daryl's show, do you think season 2 could be the entire section of bad decisions? So episode 6, we might not know what Daryl's fate could be.
True.
Because...
Something awful could happen to Daryl. I don't think they would.
Oh, I hope not. I'm gonna cry. If Daryl dies, we riot. I still agree with that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they would do that, because knowing, if anything did happen to him in this season, who would really want to watch knowing that, I don't want to see it. Yeah, I know he dies anyway.
Yeah, quite a few people would.
We're not saying that he dies. We don't know what happens.
No, we don't know. So it's interesting. So then she leaves him to rest for a little bit, and we're assuming it's just overnight, that since he passed out from getting burned like that to waking up.
Knocked out.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's probably just overnight. And he gets up and he looks out the window and he sees the young boy he's out there playing with the nuns. Did that freak anyone else out? That was one of the first things I said. Now, I'm a worrywart, so that's probably why it freaks me out. But the young kid was walking with what looked like cans on his feet. Yeah, tied to his feet. Dude, you know he's going to fall. He's going to twist his ankle in such a bad way. You do not want this in a zombie apocalypse.
No.
What the crap?
Oh, yeah, strap some cans to your feet.
Yeah, what? And then you even see him, collapse, and I'm like, oh, man, if he just collapsed a different way, his ankles could have been, just snapped.
I've seen enough memes of people walking around in really tall high heels to know that's a bad idea.
Well, did you ever, when you were a kid in the 90s, did you ever...
No, I didn't dress in high heels.
That's what you did. No, so anyone that grew up in, the 90s, and maybe they were a thing in the 80s, too, but I feel like they were really in the 90s, they were moon shoes, where you would step on them, and they were almost like little trampolines.
I wanted those.
I wanted them, too. A friend of mine had them. My parents would never get them for us, probably because we would probably break an ankle.
It's like strapping trampolines to your feet.
I know, but that's what that reminded me of. But I feel like that's why they weren't on the market that long, because I think kids were, breaking their ankles.
I think so. I think it was a big liability.
Yeah. So flashback for those of you that grew up in the 90s like we did. So Daryl is finally bathing. That's something that has been the running joke from the whole Walking Dead series was does Daryl ever take a bath?
Has he ever bathed? I don't know. Let us know if he's ever bathed in another episode.
I'm sure there's been instances where we've seen it, because I know there was that episode in the prison where they had those showers, and that's where the one boy turned. Remember? When there was a huge outbreak, once they started taking people into the prison. But I don't know. They don't really show it too often, which all these fans of Daryl will be swooning to watch. So come on.
I think people would watch a lot more if they had to bathe every episode.
That's probably true.
Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it's the grunginess that keeps us coming back for more.
Maybe. But this salt water, before he took this bath, this salt water was doing something for his hair. It was giving it some texture. It was nice. But he seemed to have a bit of a flashback to being in the ocean, because then...
He accidentally started waterboarding himself.
Somehow woke up in the water, underneath the water. So he must have fallen asleep and I guess slid down or something. I don't know. But then Isabel comes in with some supplies and she starts cleaning his head wounds. She asks Daryl if he had any siblings, and he mentioned that he did have a brother. And she mentions having a sister when she notices the scars on Daryl's back from his childhood, that he said it was from his childhood, from his dad. And then he mentions the scars on her wrist. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping we'll find out more about that one. Now it seems like she's going to take Daryl for a bit of a tour of the facility a little bit. They go to the area where all the weapons are. And I like where Daryl says, they're basically killer nuns, which killer nuns could be kind of a cool band name. Put it out there right now.
Killer nuns. Somebody's got to come out with it.
From outer space.
No. Just killer nuns. But I do like that they have an armory. And they're going back with a lot of medieval weapons in this. In France, I don't know whether I wonder if, because America, we have so many guns in America, especially newer weapons, maybe it's a little bit harder to get. Well, I assume that's harder to get them in France, except for the old, the antique.
Yeah, right. From museums and stuff like that.
So that's why we're seeing a lot more antique weapons in this version of, in this part of the world.
Maybe.
But, they come across a radio, and Daryl's excited to try to use it, he gets a little, not sidetracked.
She kind of coaxes him to go elsewhere. She's like, well, when you get better.
Yeah, when you get better, you can try it.
But I'm like, he's up and walking. He's up walking around. He's fine to sit and tinker with a radio.
Yeah.
So it's obvious that there's something up with that. And she closes the door and locks it. And you can see Daryl kind of side-eyeing that she's locking it, kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
So there's a pretty cool garden going on outside. They seem to be pretty self-sufficient.
Lots of chickens running around, which is handy. They bring Daryl some food, which is nice. And Daryl has to know at least merci.
Yeah, which is thank you, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting because you see the weird little boy who we're not interested. No, we're not introduced is what I meant to say.
Yeah, we meet Tiny Tim.
He does look like
He
Tiny Tim.
looks like Tiny Tim.
Oh my god, flashback to The Walking Dead with the tiptoe through the tulips.
Yeah.
Holy moly. That was a weird kid too. But, so the weird little boy here, there's a lot of weird kids in this. The weird little boy is mimicking almost everything that Daryl is doing.
Yeah.
And we haven't been introduced to him yet at that point.
Yeah. I don't know whether it's just, I don't know. I feel like I got a little, not annoyed. Like, I think it's supposed to be endearing. It's supposed to be an endearing scene because this kid who's surrounded by nuns all the time, and at this point, as far as we know, he's only known the nuns. He's mimicking.
Maybe the priest, but we don't know when the priest died.
You're right.
We don't know when the priest turned.
But, yeah, he's mimicking everything Daryl does, and watching it, I'm like, That's my internal dialogue when I'm watching that scene. It was good. No, I mean, it's interesting to watch him being scrutinized so closely by this kid. This kid's obviously very interested in Daryl.
Mm-hmm.
But then we go to the rooftop and we're talking to...
Yeah, Isabel is talking to one of the
head nuns.
Yeah, they're talking about Daryl basically, and the older woman doesn't feel that Daryl's a good fit here, and that he should be out on the streets with the non-believers or the non-religious.
Sinner. Yeah, I forget. What
I can't remember exactly
now.
how she says it, but Isabel thinks that he is the one. He's the messenger, and that she saw him fight. So they know that there's something brewing that we don't know about at that point, but they need protection, and they need Daryl for the protection.
Isabel saved him for a reason.
Yeah, and then we go over back to which we're introduced. His name is Laurent. But he says something else. Like, it almost sounds like roll or something.
It was very hard to hear. He has a much thicker accent.
He does, but we end up knowing his name is Laurent. But he comes over with a cute little Rubik's Cube, and I guess he was solving it. And he seems like a smart kid.
Yeah. But yeah, he's like, now you solve this. And I'm like, it's already solved. Gotta mix it up first.
Made it easy for Daryl.
Yeah. Like, there you go.
I do love seeing Daryl, though, interact with kids. He's so cute with kids. Because he knows when to kind of put some sugar coating on some things for kids. But overall, he talks to them like they're just a regular adult kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's true. Like, I think that's an actual phenomenon. Like, that actually works.
Oh, I agree.
Kids, I think, do respond to somebody who's genuine in that way.
So they chat, and Laurent asks a little bit more about Daryl, like if he has children or a wife or parents or anything, and Daryl said no, none of that. And it's interesting because then Laurent ends up saying that you deserve a happy ending too. So kind of mirroring Judith.
Yeah.
So that was pretty nice.
Yeah, that was an interesting little callback.
Yeah.
I think that definitely got in Daryl's head. He definitely took not a double take, but he was thinking, what's going on here?
And at first when they introduced Isabel, I was like, oh, could this be a love interest for Daryl? And I'm not one of those people, like, I love love. I do love stories and all that stuff.
Terry loves love.
Yeah, Terry loves love. But I don't want to always just watch a show and just assume there's going to be a love story in it, because I don't feel like there has to always be a love story. But I did wonder if they were going to have Daryl have a love story in this episode, or this season, I should say. And so I thought when they introduced Isabel that maybe she was going to be the love interest. And then it came to be that she's a nun, so I'm like, okay, so maybe not, kind of thing. But I don't know, we'll find out.
Yeah, you never know.
So we just had Maribel and her grandfather walking down the road, which I don't know if that's really actually her grandfather, or if it was just part of the ploy kind of thing, and maybe they were just strangers that met. Up. Yeah, and they just kind of bonded throughout the years or however long they've been together. So yeah, we'll just say Maribel and her grandfather, they're walking down the road, and they happen to be reading from the book that they stole from Daryl, the book translation book. And they happen to be reading about the expression pear-shaped. Then she's saying that it means something bad. Yeah. And it's just kind of like foreshadowing.
That was good.
Yeah,
that was a nice little nod.
which you feel bad, but at the same time, you don't.
Yeah, they weren't the greatest people.
No.
Like, they weren't awful, but they were also kind of pricks to Daryl.
Yeah, and not just that, but even when the grandfather has been already hit over the head, he's down on his knees because the other guy,
we didn't even mention that part yet.
No, not yet. But,
yeah.
I mean, if you watch that scene, you'll see that these two other soldiers... Okay, so I'll back up.
3 other soldiers, yeah.
You're right, so I'll back up. So they're walking down, they're talking about pear-shaped, and then, yeah, they finally heard the truck pull up.
Which nobody hears. Like, nobody can listen for whatever reason. Like, Daryl didn't hear that walker in the beginning of this episode. And then these two characters don't hear this truck pulling up, which I feel like...
They were loud.
They were very loud. Anybody would have heard that, like, half a mile out.
Yeah, exactly.
3 soldiers pull up in a car and start interrogating Maribel and her grandfather about 2 soldiers that had been checking out this area a few days ago. And Maribel lies to them and says that, oh, this man was trying to rob us. Daryl
Well, she says that after her grandfather was already hit.
That's true. Oh, yeah, you're right. Because at first they try to say that
they didn't see anybody. Yep.
But
then they change tunes a little bit.
Change tunes, tries to pin it on Daryl.
Again.
Yeah, tries to pin it on Daryl, even though we know that Maribel killed Michelle.
That was the scene, that was what earlier in our podcast we talked about, and we wanted to make sure to stress that point, that she's the one that killed Michelle, because she claims it was the American, aka Daryl, that killed him, but it wasn't. She took it over from Daryl.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, he almost did kill him, but she took it over. And then, of course, she lies and throws Daryl under the bus again. So it's kind of one of those things, that's my point of saying you kind of feel bad, but you kind of don't, because they are jerks. Obviously, they robbed Daryl after all that, and the grandfather was already wounded from this lead soldier who we find out is his brother, Michelle's brother, and the grandfather is down on his knees, injured, and he's still like, oh, well, what's the reward?
Yeah.
It's like, dude.
They do make him out to be a slime ball.
Yeah, like he's just in it for whatever he can get, kind of thing. And it's like, don't you think not getting like further abused is a good reward?
That being said, the guy asking the questions, which I don't know if we find out his name yet.
Capo or Capo?
Capo. Yeah, Capo. Like yeah, that was aggressive. I mean,
for sure.
In this world, I guess that's how things play out. But man,
and
just upright beating an old man in the head with his own cane.
And is that where he ended up taking him out anyway in his head? Because when he falls to the ground and they pan out from that scene, it looks like there's blood on his head.
They don't really show.
So we don't know if we're going to see the grandfather as a walker later on and at some point, and it's going to mess up with Maribel. But also, they make it so easy, or they make it look so easy to kill a human, in the sense of it just goes into the body so easily, where obviously the dead, they're already disintegrating a little bit, so yeah, things are softer. But when it's like a regular human that didn't turn yet.
Yeah.
They make it look so easy.
Yeah, I think you're talking about, like, if they ever have to take out somebody who just died.
Yes.
And, like, I'll stab him in the head.
And then they go... slow.
it's like stabbing an overripe melon. It's just like...
Yeah.
Like, that is, like, either the sharpest knife or it's, like, tipped with a lightsaber. I don't know. It's just... way too easy to stab somebody in the head in this universe.
It is. Not that I'm going to try it, but I'm just like, dang, what the hell?
They all know where the soft spot is, I guess. I don't know.
They do, I guess, after all these years. So then, and how about the little bit of snot that comes out of her nose, too?
Yeah. Very reminiscent of Rick when he was down on his knees when Negan was about to make him cut off
Carl's arm.
Hand.
That was a good snot bubble.
That was a good snot bubble. It really sold it.
Yeah, so after the snot trail from that woman, they apparently take her in their truck
to find
Michelle. Where all that happened, where the supposed attack happened that she's claiming that happened.
We see Daryl trying to break into the office where the radio is, and he hears in the distance Laurent talking to, he's hear a walker in the background.
Yeah.
And we find out that Laurent is I might be mispronouncing his name.
Oh, I just keep saying Lauren, and I keep feeling like Glorious Bastards was like Nazis.
Nancy.
So I'm like,
Grazie.
So American with this. I'm sorry, guys.
I'm going to call him Laurent because it feels good.
It does sound like that's what they're saying.
So, Laurent is reading a book. I'm not sure what book it was. It may have been The Count of Monte Cristo, because they do reference that book.
They do.
They reference that book later. I love that story. I need to read the book. But he's reading that to a zombie priest.
Mm-hmm. Which, he looks cool.
Very freaky. Very freaky.
So after that, I think Isabel comes out and she's trying to explain to Daryl, but Daryl's kind of disgusted at that point that after all this, they have a priest locked up in a closet, is kind of what he's saying. So he wants to leave.
I think he's dealt with enough groups that have kept walkers to know that if they're keeping walkers still, they're not in a good place.
Yeah, they're...
And he doesn't have time or the resources to really help this group, I think.
Yeah, and I think in a little while we're going to see, too, which it's funny you mentioned that because I did think about that early on back to, like, Herschel, when we first are introduced to Herschel, where he thinks that they're just sick and that they're going to fix them, when we have learned that is not the case.
Right.
So Daryl's wanting to leave, and Isabel is trying to persuade him to stay, saying that he's the one and or the messenger.
The messenger. He's going to deliver Laurent to a Buddhist monk?
I don't know if it's a Buddhist monk or there's like a port that he has to get to, unless it's like kill two birds with one stone, where Daryl will take Laurent there, but then Daryl can go to the port that he needs to go to be able to go back home. So
right. But Daryl's going through some of the weapons. He's ready to get out of there, and
Yeah.
he's going through some of the church weapons that they have there.
I was so excited to see him grab the little tiny crossbow at first. So you know how
Did
many
he
people
put it back down?
He did, and then he grabbed that
He's
really.
like, that's too small.
And then he grabbed that really cool like thing with the spike at the
It's
end.
either a morning star or a flare.
Whatever it is, he grabbed one of those.
I'm gonna call it a flare.
Which those are smart to have, and we'll see in the second episode.
Yeah. He also finds out that the radio doesn't work.
Well, real quick, going back to the weapons, I love that Daryl kept saying, "Can I borrow this?" And then he'd say a couple other things. I'm going to borrow this too. And it's just I love Daryl. But yeah, when he finds out that the radio doesn't work, ooh, he's mad.
Yeah. But what's he going to do?
Yeah, I mean, but again, it's kind of proving that she lied again.
Yeah.
Because they withheld the information about having a zombie priest there. So Daryl's kind of ticked about that, and then now the radio not working, he's kind of ticked about that.
But she basically puts in terms that in order for him to get where he needs to go, he needs to help them.
Yeah, it sounds like it would be too dangerous of a trek for Daryl to do on his own since he doesn't speak any French. So it would be impossible for him to find where to go, which makes sense. So this was a small part that was small, but it was big too. It was kind of like a very important part, I feel, for the story, or where the story is going to go for this season, where Mary Bell takes the soldiers back to where the fight happened earlier and the bodies of the soldiers should be. And
it was Henry and Michelle.
Yeah. So Michelle's found to be a walker, and his brother Capo sees him and has a bit of an emotional moment there, and then decides to put him down, and then he breaks down from that.
Scene.
Yeah, that was sad. And then Capo, I'm sorry. He asks Mary Bell who did this. And
she blamed the American.
Yep. Says the American did it. Oy. And then they end up finding signs around the vicinity that leads them to go to the convent. And that's where we're headed next. So Daryl's leaving the convent, and Isabel's still trying to convince him to stay. But they have a bit of a back and forth. And then he asks, well, what does he think about it? Yeah, what does the kid think? Because so far it seems like he's in the dark. That's what it seems like. And he says something to Daryl.
He says
au revoir.
Au revoir. And then...
Yeah, we don't know what he said.
I don't know what he said. Now, yeah, obviously we don't know French, but...
Is it our American ears that they're just not well equipped to hear the French accent?
Somebody who knows French needs to let us know. Did he enunciate that word properly?
Or whatever the saying is that he said at the end.
I don't know what he said.
Because it literally just sounded very slurred to us, so we do not know what he actually said. I'm sure we could find it online. I'll probably go on and see if I can find it anywhere. But if you feel like commenting, if you know what the kid said, we could not make it out.
Yeah, it was abrupt.
And then after that exchange, that's when Daryl goes back to Isabel and says that he's already made plans and he's not looking to add any more, which I don't blame him because he already does have a lot on his plate and he just went through a lot of stuff. So it's like just to add more stuff is going to be a lot.
True. She's asking him to bank on hope, though.
Yeah.
Like, you're going out this way anyway. Like, why can't, just take a chance, essentially.
It's kind of like The Last of Us with Joel and Ellie.
Yeah.
If you guys watch The Last of Us, like that kind of mission.
That's an amazing show.
Love it. We played the video game years before that the show was even announced, and we were so excited to see the show.
They did a good job.
But back to The Walking Dead. So then Daryl ends up leaving the convent, and the other nun the older nun talks to Isabel and kind of reassures her that it's okay that Daryl wasn't the one, and that's okay that she was holding on to hope so strongly. And
it was an admirable thing that she hoped so hard.
Hoped so hard.
Hoped so hard for it. So deeply for it.
And then Daryl's walking down the road, and thankfully his ears finally work.
Right?
And he hears the trucks.
Yep. And he ducks off to the side of the road and hides behind a bush and watches a convoy pull up to the church.
And one little tidbit I want to add before we go to the next scene. Daryl has around his neck this really cool hat. I am hoping that he wears it at one point. It looks like such a cool hat. I noticed it when he went to try and tinker with the radio as he was getting like the weapons and stuff back in the convent. And I was like, man, I really wish he'd put on that hat. That's going to look so cool on him.
Yeah.
He's yet to put it on. I hope it happens at one point.
Has he ever worn a well, I know he wore like a, not a gaucho.
Yeah, he wore a poncho thing.
Yeah, did it have a hood?
It may have, but I wonder if with the motorcycle, if it would just blow off, so he didn't really wear it like that often.
I could see him wearing something like that, like almost like a rain slicker kind of rain jacket.
He has, and even in the beginning of this Daryl show, he was walking. I think he had a poncho on.
So the soldiers went to pressuring the nuns into letting them in, and the nuns started gearing up for a fight, which is pretty badass, pretty sweet looking. They put the boy in the office, and Isabel gives him a key to lock himself inside, which, ridiculous how long he waits before he decides to lock the door.
Yeah, so it's essentially he was like staring at the wall for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, the kid, like, they put him in the room, and he had to have just stared at that door for like over 5 minutes before locking the door at the worst possible time.
Kids. Yeah, so the nuns are getting their weapons ready. Isabel meets the soldiers, and he confronts her about the flyers that she's been leaving around town. They're kind of pinning her to being at the place that killed the 2 soldiers because of her flyers, but she even says herself, she leaves them everywhere that she goes. So there's really no way they can kind of pin her to that.
These guys are a little bit irrational.
And now he's filled with revenge.
Yeah.
Because his brother was killed.
Yeah, he mentions it a couple times. He's like, that was my brother, Michel.
Yeah, then the men start to go inside the facility, and they get to the weapons room where the kid is in that office in the corner, and he finally decides to lock the freaking door then, and of course you hear the lock turn, and capo
like, oh yeah, I gotta lock the door.
Yeah, whoops. Oh man.
Yeah, just before Capo. I'm gonna pronounce it Capo for now. El Capo. He's just about to blow a hole in the door to get to the kid.
Yeah.
And the priest. They hear the priest.
Yeah.
The zombie priest.
Well, I think even his soldiers kind of call for his attention because they found the priest in that one kind of cell that they have him in. That priest, though, the way they did his makeup.
They did a good job with him, yeah.
That's probably one of my favorite walkers, too.
Really?
Yeah, because I don't know if I've mentioned this in our previous podcast about The Walking Dead, which we will get to in the beginning, like the first season. One of my top favorite walkers was the one in the bus, where he was sitting there all idle, and then Rick comes in with the horse, and he just kind of gets animated, and he walks out, and oh man, he has such a look. Like, he looks like such an alpha zombie.
Yeah, he looked like he was thinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's what made him so creepy, is that he looked like he was thinking.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite walkers, and now this priest one is super creepy. Like, the way they made his eyes all yellow and stuff, just very creepy.
Yeah. But, there's a big long altercation. Capo doesn't understand why they're keeping a dead priest. They explain to him that, they still believe that there's redemption for the sinners and the dead.
Yeah, for their souls.
So, yeah, for their souls. Capo doesn't care. He's like, nope, get the bayonet, stab this guy in the head.
And like we said earlier, it reminds us very much of Herschel when we first met Herschel.
And the kid that they have stabbed the priest in the head went to church there.
Yeah, so he knew that Father Gene.
He knew that priest, and the Mother Superior knew that boy and taught him sacraments and everything like that.
Yeah, so she was like begging him to not do it.
But he did it.
And he's like, forgive me, Father, right before he did it too.
Yeah.
Man, that sucks.
He can definitely be seen as a mercy, though.
Yeah, I agree. And then once they kill the priest, then Laurent, he gets very upset about it. And of course, he blows his cover. And my first thought was, oh great, it's another young boy. They're going to take him to be a soldier, basically. And they definitely tried to take him. So I'm not sure if that was going to be their plan, if they were going to try and recruit him as a soldier then at that point, or what was the plan with that.
Just before, Isabel tries to help the boy.
Yeah, and she gets slapped in the face.
Slapped in the face. And then Daryl comes in for a win.
Woohoo, Daryl!
Stabs the guy in the back with a beautiful axe.
And he threw it too.
It was a very ornate axe, battle axe.
So then the fighting really ensues, and it's pretty badass.
I think there was a quick scene, well, the scene where a few of the soldiers meet up with the nuns. And I think the soldiers were like, what do we do?
Yeah, they probably weren't expecting that.
They were not expecting that. But one of them had the balls enough to
shoot first.
So
and two of the nuns got shot first, right in like the torso, stomach area. So it was like, ooh, that sucks. They're just down for the count now.
But yeah, the other nuns went right after. They didn't hesitate.
That was intense. And they just start stabbing and everything.
Yeah.
And just the sound effects really add to the intensity of the scene too.
Yeah, the Foley artists, that's an amazing job.
Hell yeah. That would be a fun one to do.
I think a lot of people don't realize how much work a Foley artist does to make a movie or a show as intense as it is, because like 80% of a movie or a show is what you hear.
Absolutely. Yeah, audio is very important. I think a lot of people don't realize just how important audio can be for a lot of stories.
Absolutely.
Because I think if you want to watch a video and you're interested in the subject matter, if you can't hear what they're saying that well, it's not going to be that great. But if the video is great, like the actual visual parts of it, yeah, it works, but you're not going to really learn what you would be just hearing it. So it's like that's one of the things we've always learned through videography and cinematography is audio is kind of king.
It is.
I think that a lot of the scenes wouldn't be as amazing if the Foley artists weren't so awesome at what they do. And of course the music choices too. That definitely helps add to the intensity of scenes. So now Capo and a few of the other men go inside to search for Daryl, because obviously they know Daryl's there now, so they assume that he's the American. And I always think of that one season, I think it was, again, going back to the prison with the governor. They're like, oh, well, we have a tank. And it's like, yeah, well, we have a Daryl. Like, he is so badass. I love him.
He's amazing. Yeah, they chase him through the convent. It's not a convent. What is this place called?
I don't know. It might be a convent.
Monastery.
Monastery,
we'll call it a monastery. So they're chasing Daryl through the monastery. And Daryl takes out the one guard that's helping Capo. Capo and Daryl are having a fight. Capo gets the upper hand, and then Isabel comes in with the same axe.
Yep.
I thought she was going to cut his arm off.
Oh, that
I thought she was going to
cool.
cut Capo's arm off.
That would have been interesting.
Yeah, but Daryl's able to pick up. It looked like a Luger. It was a German gun.
No, it's not a loogie.
Not a loogie. It was a Luger. And He gets a couple of shots off at Capo, and he hits him in the shoulder at least.
Yep, and then he's chasing him. But it's interesting that Daryl saved Isabel with that axe. She took that same axe out of that guy's back, and then she saved Daryl with that axe.
Yeah.
So it's pretty.
Keep
pretty
that
cool.
axe.
Yeah, it's a lucky axe.
It's my lucky axe.
And now Daryl's running through trying to catch Capo, and he gets in his Jeep. And Daryl, it looked like Daryl could have had a shot, but he was out of ammo.
Out of ammo.
Dang it.
Yep.
But of course, where would the storyline go if we took out the main bad guy right now?
Yeah. We'll see where he ends up in the next couple of episodes, probably.
Yeah. And it did annoy me at that scene, though, because the Mother Superior, she did kind of get in the way. She was trying to stop Daryl from shooting. Yeah, show mercy. It's like, dude, no. Family Guy reference.
Sorry.
But yeah, it kind of irked me, because I'm like, I understand showing mercy, but where was his mercy for you?
Yeah.
And then come to find out, she was definitely injured, and it was a fatal injury.
Was she injured, or did she have a heart attack?
I thought I saw blood on her stomach, but maybe, it could have been someone else's.
Might have gotten stabbed.
Yeah, it could have been someone else's blood.
We'll find out.
Yeah. And then they go through, so the Jeep goes, Capo gets in his Jeep and he drives off, and then we go through the garden with Daryl again, and you see the mix of nuns and soldiers dead on the ground. And I'm like, ooh, man, they better start stabbing, because they're going to come back pretty quickly, and things will get out of hand very quickly.
Yeah, and like, what are they going to put all the nuns in where that priest was?
Yeah, that's true. Man. I don't know. But then Daryl has a really cool shot with one of the soldier walkers, and he used one of the muskets or something.
Yeah.
And
it was a pistol. Powerful weapon.
Oh, yeah.
That guy's head in half.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool scene. All right, we're going to get back and we'll wrap this up.
So, we say goodbye to Mother Superior.
Yep.
Passes away. But before she passes away, she does say a few parting words with Daryl. Maybe he is the one.
Yeah.
Maybe he's the one.
You are the one.
Neo.
Like Bob's Burgers.
No.
That is cool, though, that she sees maybe after all this, because he ended up coming back to help. He didn't have to.
And she seemed like a big skeptic of Daryl to begin with. So.
She did. So that was interesting. And then when they pan out, I wonder if there was any type of religious symbolism with the way Daryl was kneeling and the way that Isabel was holding Mother Superior, and then the other nun was left and was holding the wrong, however you say his name. I'm going to feel so stupid, like, trying to pronounce these things, so I'm sorry, people.
No, it definitely felt like a very Baroque or like a Renaissance style.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
For sure.
For sure. And it seems as though Isabel, Laurent, and the other nun, and then, of course, Daryl, they're the only remaining people.
Yep.
That's what it seems like.
Yeah, only 4 survivors. Then we have a scene where they're at they're at a campfire. I thought at first that they had a pyre, that they were burning the bodies.
Oh.
But I think it was just a fire in the back.
Yeah.
Because they do mention that all the sisters are in the ground. And Daryl kind of explains that he had tried looking for something worth... What do you say? Looking for something worth finding?
Maybe. But he
was unclear about what he's looking for.
Maybe, but he did say that he ran into some bad people and they put him on a boat and that didn't go well.
Yeah.
Then he washed on shore and then he ran into a nun.
Yeah. So then he finally agrees to take them where they need to go.
If she can get him to the port, at least.
Yeah.
And then they zoom out.
We see Capo.
Being a weirdo, watching them.
Yeah.
Well, not really watching them, but watching the fire, like the glow of the fire. And then he hobbles to his Jeep and he starts the engine. And again, how did they not hear that noisy-ass Jeep?
It definitely seemed like he was close enough that they'd be like, there he is. Get him.
And you know, one of my thoughts too, which as they were sitting around the campfire, their back was to that huge opening behind them. Did they know exactly how many soldiers and stuff were there? I hope they took out all the walkers, because a walker could very quietly sneak up on them and stuff. Like, I probably would have put my back to where the brick wall was and be facing all the openness.
I'm going to assume, well, because they buried the nuns, I'm going to assume that they went through and
took care of the soldiers. But
cleared.
what I'm saying is, they cleared. But what I'm saying is, what if they missed one?
Sure, yeah.
Because there could have been one in another room or something.
Because
like
God knows they can't hear anything behind them.
So we're at our final scene, and it's that ship that Daryl must have been on, because they're making an announcement, or they're saying that a prisoner did escape.
Yeah, it looks like the higher ups came to check on what happened, and from the looks of it, Daryl made a little bit of a mess before he abandoned ship.
And it does look like they were doing some form of medical experiments with some of the walkers that were on board, but it looks like some of them might be salvageable, so their whole experiment isn't completely kaput.
Yeah. Daryl messed up their science experiment for sure, and the higher-ups are not happy about it.
No, and then the captain looks like he's getting the brunt of it, and the captain is kind of saying that, again, it was an American, and that Dixon. So they're like, okay, it's a start. So
his name was Dixon.
So they're looking for a Dixon now, and they're going to start searching for Daryl.
If I were Daryl, I'd be like, my name's Philippe. Bonjour. You better start learning French quick. Yeah. That's all I'm saying.
But it looked like they were going to put down the captain, because the captain couldn't say for sure whether he for sure knew that Daryl was dead, or if he was just assuming because Daryl must have jumped overboard. That, I mean, how can someone survive that? So yeah, they're dead kind of thing, but rookie mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, the captain said he was presumed dead, but I think the higher up felt that the captain of this ship is so incompetent that he couldn't even tell whether or not somebody was dead or not. So
at the end of that, when they were panning out, I for sure thought there was going to be the sound of a gunshot, because they were going to take down the captain, but there wasn't. So...
I thought either a gunshot. Yeah, as soon as she walked away, she looked to the left, and you're like, okay, she's looking at a sniper or somebody with a rifle.
She's signaling somebody.
Yep. And then I also thought, I wonder if she's just going to stab him.
Yeah.
But no, they let him live.
They did. So that was an action-packed first episode. There was a lot to digest, a lot to unpack.
Mm-hmm. It was a great new start to a new show.
It was. I'm digging it so far.
Yeah. Don't call it a spinoff.
No.
Apparently they get upset if you call it a spinoff.
I liked it a lot. So that was the first episode. We already watched the second episode, but we haven't done a podcast for that yet. So we'll be doing that shortly.
Very shortly.
This week for sure. So one little thought that I had before we wrap it up for the night. It seems obviously like they're doing some experimenting on this ship that Daryl was on. do you think that Daryl was somehow investigating this ship when it was docked in America, was watching from afar, was spotted, taken as a prisoner, brought on that ship, and that ship happens to somehow be connected to the world that Rick was taken into? Because remember, at one point there was talk of wherever Rick was going, it was like he was an A or a B, and maybe they're going to be running experiments on it. And they kind of talked about that in the spin-off The World Beyond, or the show The World Beyond. So I wonder if Daryl was just taken prisoner because he was researching this area to spot Rick.
I think that's a good idea. I think that's a pretty good way to tie it in, if he was still looking for Rick.
And another thought, in The Walking Dead, when we had that flash to Rick, because we hadn't seen him for years, and then Rick was spotted writing a note, and then that helicopter spotted him and everything.
Right.
He was near a body of water.
He was. Yeah, he very easily could have been near a port.
And yeah, wasn't there a ship? Because he was, I think he was barefoot when he wrote the note, and then he threw, I think, like the bottle with the note in the water, I think. And I feel like there was a ship that was it was lopsided, so it was no longer in use.
Yeah.
And when Michonne...
He was a lopsided ship.
I mean, technically you kind of can until it completely goes. But then when Michonne went on that one ship and found the iPhone that he carved Michonne into and Rick, but no Judith, into, or RJ, maybe there's something there?
Maybe.
And
We'll find out. So
what do you guys... Yeah, I hope so too. So what do you guys think? Do you think there's any connection with this ship and Rick? Do you think there's anything of what I just said? Do you guys have any thoughts like that?
What kind of thoughts do you have on the subject?
But really, if you guys want to join in and leave us a comment however you see fit, hopefully we'll see them, because we're still trying to figure out where exactly we are distributed there. So hopefully we won't miss your comment. But you can definitely find us on Instagram. So thanks for tuning in to our Dead Talk, where we discussed The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, Season 1, Episode number 1, titled Lama Perdue. I hope I didn't murder that.
Lama Perdue. Tune into our next podcast, where we'll discuss The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, Season 1, Episode number 2, titled Alouette.
We're so excited to be back.
It is good to be back.
It is. We'll see how consistent we could be. We promise we'll produce episodes. It might just be a little bit of a lull here and there, but we promise...
We're going to be more consistent with it, for sure.
Will. And definitely interact with us. We really want to hear from everybody and see what you guys have to say.
That's going to be a big motivator for me.
Me too.
Good.
All right, so we'll see you in the next one.
Bye, guys.